Welcome back to the Lawyer Diaries. Today we're doing something a little different. We're going to pull some questions from the Big Law Reddit thread that we think are pretty, some of them are kind of funny, but also really relevant, and clearly people want to know the answers. So without further ado, we've chosen our top four, or I guess four, that we feel like we can provide some good answers for.
Yeah. And we think we're going to do this episode format every so often whenever we find a good collection of Reddit questions that we want to answer. So the first question, it actually got deleted. But we think that this is an important one to talk about. And it is, can I lateral after my first year in Big Law? We get this question a lot because we talk to a lot of folks who are either in their first year or they're about to wrap up their first year or they're just starting their second year. And the answer is, unfortunately, it's a lawyer answer. It depends. So if you've finished your first year and you have an entire year that you can write on your resume, you're in a much better position to lateral than folks who are still in the middle of their first year. But in 2021, when the market was really hot, folks who were in the middle of their first year were able to lateral successfully. In today's market, I would say that it would be quite a challenge. But if you're in a really competitive practice group where there's more demand than supply, it is more likely. Becca, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where honestly, I can count probably on both hands or on one hand how many roles I've seen that are specifically seeking someone with even 1 year of experience. So, to the extent you can say a year or even two, like you're in a better spot to lateral. But let's say you're coming up on your 1 year mark, you really want to leave, you don't see a future there. Your pedigree, your credentials are really what are going to pull a lot of the weight here if you're trying to lateral so junior. So your school, whether you were on law review or on some kind of journal, your undergrad, your clerkships, like that is what's going to make you movable at such a junior level, because most places know after 1 year, like, you've really learned so little. I mean, hopefully you've learned a lot, but like it couldn't possibly be that much where you're going to just be able to like plug and play somewhere else. They're still going to have to invest in training you.
Exactly. The vast majority of the open roles that we see are looking for someone with 2 or more years of experience. And I mean, even sometimes, like, generally they're asking for between 3 to 5 years. Like, that's kind of the lateral sweet spot, are third and fifth years and fourth years. So it's a challenge, but it's definitely doable. And of course, there are situations where you do want to lateral sooner rather than later. Like, if you're not getting valuable experience, the longer you're at a firm where you're not getting experience, the more challenging it could be to lateral later, because if you're a first year and you haven't developed that many skills, that's a lot more excusable than being a third year who's still at the level of a second or first year, which happens a lot. So it kind of depends on your reasoning. And like, it's possible, but it can be challenging.
And this is kind of going beyond the scope of the question too, but I think if one of the reasons you want to lateral is because you haven't gotten a ton of work your first year, don't think that just because you hit the year mark, you hit that magic number, you'll be able to move. You, unfortunately, if you're in the situation where you're really struggling to get work, you really should try to hustle. Even if you know you don't want to stay because your career prospects and, outlook doesn't look so good, you should try to get on a bunch of pro bono cases, because firms aren't going to want to hire you if they see that all you've done really is legal research for a year. So I would encourage anyone who's a first year who is thinking about lateraling because they're really slow to try super, super hard to get as much experience as you can, like really milk it before you hit that year mark and start looking to leave.
Such good advice. And I think like firms, they always want to see that, even if things have been slow and there's good reason in the market for that particular practice group to be slow, that you're still doing something. So doing pro bono shows that you're still a go getter. You still want to fill your days with something valuable. And you're looking to be a competent lawyer. And if there's not enough work to go around, you are making work and you are finding the opportunities that do exist. It reflects well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, our second question is titled How to Decline Work. So, Desperate Way 1471 asks, I recently accepted an offer at another firm. Obviously, have not told anyone that I'm leaving other than a few close friends. How do I go about declining work without outing myself? My practice group has a staffing coordinator, not a partner, who typically assigns work. Should I just tell that person and ask they keep it confidential? Erica, you want to take a first stab?
I think that so one of the first responses, comments is pretty good. It says, staffing coordinator works for the partners, not you. And they will not keep it confidential, LOL.
Yeah.
I think that's good advice. Obviously, it doesn't answer the whole question, but the truth is, if you tell the staffing coordinator, why you don't want to take work, etc., I don't expect that to be confidential. It's not confidential. Um, and I think also it depends on what point you are in the lateral process. I think that okay, this person's already accepted an offer. I'm assuming that they're still running conflicts, which is why they haven't given notice yet. You're not really in a position to start declining work if you haven't given notice. And generally, once you've given notice, you're not going to be staffed on any new matters. I think in this position, you really still want to be putting your best foot forward. You want to preserve the relationships at your current firm, the people you're working with at your current firm. I know you're about to leave, but they are future references. You never know if you want to go back to that firm at a later point, and you always want to keep it professional. So I would say if you have availability, you should continue taking work if possible.
Yeah, nothing's guaranteed. I mean, very rarely do conflicts fall through, but you don't want to jump the gun. You don't want to leave in bad form. I mean, the answer is like, first of all, of course, do not tell the lateral coordinator. That will not be kept private. But also, you shouldn't be declining work. Once you give your 2 week notice, you're not going to get new work. Okay. And presumably that's soon if you already have an offer, right? But in the meantime, I mean, exactly as Erica said, like these are your colleagues, these are hopefully future references. The best thing you can do for yourself is to leave on good terms.
Exactly. So the third question, which we think is a good one, it's titled Follow Up Emails After Lateral Interviews. And the question is for laterals applying to other firms, are you sending follow up emails to interviewers? I sent them to the hiring partner in my niche field and recruiting team after the first round, but the two subsequent rounds have been with partners in more and more adjacent practice groups that I would only sometimes work with. Becca, what are your thoughts on follow up emails?
I have strong thoughts. I think it's interesting that they said I sent them to the hiring partner in my field, but not with partners in other groups. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, why would you not want to leave a good impression on people that you will be in the same office with just because they're not going to be the ones giving you work? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Um, I think it is always polite and good etiquette to send a thank you email thanking someone for their time. It's an excellent way to show continued enthusiasm for the role and also that you're actively listening because if you go on our blog, actually I have a great post that explains the best way to write a good thank you email. And it should include something notable from your conversation that either, is a personal note that you guys touched on or something that's specific that the interviewer mentioned that shows you were listening, you're paying attention, and you actually are really this isn't just another job that you sat through the interview for. So I think it's always good. I think it's definitely leans more old school, like the preference for thank you emails. As you can see from a lot of the comments, people are like, this is boomer advice. Probably mostly older folks would care about it, but I, as a younger person, also care about it. I think it's very polite. And the only way it can hurt you is if the email's pretty careless and has a typo or is addressed to the wrong person or if you really screw it up, which you probably won't because it's not that complicated or hard to do. So I'm a big proponent of doing it. It doesn't matter who you talk to, doesn't matter if they're in your group, doesn't matter if they're a partner or an associate, it's polite.
Right. And I would just say, treat these emails, Becca, you mentioned this, they're a work product. So make sure that you don't make any typos. I think that I don't necessarily think that they will make or break you, but I do think there are some people who care a lot about these. And I know that they say, yeah, people are saying this is a boomer thing to do, etc. Well, just remember who is making the decision about your candidacy, and chances are it might be a boomer. So there's nothing wrong with sending something that they would appreciate. And yes, Becca, your blog post on this is so good. So if anyone wants more information on how to write a good thank you letter, thank you email, you should check out that blog post.
Thank you. I'm proud of that one. Our last question by Provet Single 1946 is titled, How much time off is reasonable for wedding? May be firm dependent, but I'm fairly new to my firm slash Big Law in general, and I'm trying to figure out what would be appropriate here. I'm having a destination wedding that will require a fair amount of travel, requiring me to get there at least a few days in advance, and we would also like to spend some time with our family beyond the day of the wedding, slash take a honeymoon if possible. I have had teammates go out for 3+ weeks for normal vacations, not weddings, but not sure what is appropriate here. Do not want to be greedy, but would able to take off the maximum amount reasonable. Thanks. Um, I could have written this because I got married in Costa Rica and I obviously destination wedding, wanted to spend some time with family, wanted to spend some time like on a mini moon after the fact. Um, but I think our biggest piece of advice is to go based off of what other people in the group do. It seems like this person, people in their group take even 3 weeks off just for regular vacation. That's great for you because you have an even better excuse. You're getting married and you're gonna have a honeymoon. Like that's gonna be so much more respected and easier to ask for. The first person says 2 is common, 3 is doable. I think that's probably pretty fair. Again, you should really base your judgment call on what other associates in your group do and maybe like junior partners who have been, getting married recently.
Exactly. I mean, it just depends on the firm. It depends on the practice group. So all you can do is base it off of what other people are doing. And so for this person, maximum amount of time reasonable, I would say it's okay to take 3 weeks if other people are doing that for normal vacations. I mean, this is your wedding. This is a huge, huge life event. You should not be afraid to take 3 weeks if you're seeing other people do that. And don't feel bad. I mean, obviously if other people are taking 3 weeks for vacations, you probably can't take 5 weeks. I mean, that's a really, really long time in big law for any type of vacation or even your wedding. But I'd say 3 weeks is fine.
I will
Um,
say I personally have never took 3 weeks off like in a row. My husband didn't either. I don't know anyone in his groups that have like that's like I'm like take that and run if you feel comfortable with that. But to me, that's like a
exactly.
that's I'm actually surprised. And then people in the comments are
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, 3." I'm like, "Where do you guys work?"
I was going to say something really similar. At the firms that I've worked at, 3 would be That's a really long
Just, like,
time.
pushing it.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it would raise some eyebrows, unfortunately, and, like, I would say if you're at a firm that's kind of intense, maybe, like, 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks is a reasonable amount of time at an intense firm, and there are some firms where maybe only 1 week would be acceptable. So it just really, really depends, but if you are at a place where 3 weeks is acceptable, yeah, take it, 'cause I actually I haven't heard of that either. So that's fantastic for this person.
Yeah, I'm like, "Enjoy it.
Yes.
Enjoy it." And also don't, like, for anyone listening, like, the week before your wedding, you were just, like, in another place mentally. So, take that into account.
So, so, so true. And I would say if you do want to take more time, just let everyone know as early as possible. Like put that in people's calendars, let all of your teams know. Make sure that when you're staffed on cases or deals, that it works for your schedule because my wedding was truly the best day of my life, and I am so grateful that I didn't have, like, a case in the back of my mind at that time that I was thinking about or that anyone had emailed me with, like, "Oh, can you do this?" Because, quite frankly, like, nothing was gonna get done. I mean, it was the best day ever. I was in a different universe, so everyone deserves that. So set yourself up for success and let everyone that you work with know as early as possible. This is how much time I'm taking off, and block off people's calendars.
Yeah. We almost did a whole episode on this because I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's useful information. And like, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Like, this person obviously is probably going to try and take 3 weeks off and do their honeymoon right after. But like, I took off about 2 weeks for me and my husband took off 2 weeks for our wedding in Costa Rica. And then we didn't do our honeymoon until the next year, which was another 2 weeks. Granted, we also had a wedding in Italy last year, the same year of our wedding, which we had to take another week off for. So like we got a lot of travel done last year. But yeah, it's really it can be tricky, especially when you're at that age where you're on the wedding circuit and people are really doing destination weddings. So
Yeah,
it can be
so
tricky.
true. And I think one thing that's challenging for big law associates is, you probably have friends in other industries and they're taking a really long time off, like a month. And I think that's normal in those industries. And it's hard because that's really not the norm for our industry. So, be aware of that. Like, you're probably not going to be able to take as much time off as some of your friends who have different types of jobs. And like, it's, not always fair, but it kind of is what it is, and make the most out of the time that you do have off. I think that, Becca, what you said, taking 2 weeks off for your wedding and doing a mini moon, and then later on taking another 2 weeks off for a honeymoon, that's something that I've seen a lot. And that's one way to maximize that amount of time because people will respect your time off for your wedding. I mean, generally, from what I've heard and from my experience, it's one of the few times in your life where people really respect that time off. And people also respect your time off for your honeymoon. So if you want to stagger those two in order to maximize time, that's totally, I mean, so many people, I'm doing it too. I got married in March and my honeymoon is New Year's / Christmas. So like months later. That's a great way to maximize time off.
Yeah, absolutely. So we hope you all enjoyed this and it was helpful. We definitely want to do it again soon. That was so fun. And maybe pick like, I don't know, some goofy questions. There's some crazy, crazy stuff that goes on in the Big Law Reddit. But till next time, feel free to DM us or email us if you think of anything you want us to chat about.